right, so this is what we call the Afterburn. If you have comments or questions, you can go ahead and start lining up over here. The podium's now on this side. And if you're on live stream, we've got our Shamish team back there, Rob and Gary and Kurt, and they'll take care of well, Kurt's not back there, but he's online, I'm sure. But Rob will read your stuff over the microphone. All right. Taylor, you're first.
Hi, Rabbi. Okay, so I was seeing, my main question is if there's a limit to how selfless a person can be. I remember a long time being on a call with Elder Billy, and he would tell me about how you would wake up in the middle of the night to like answer people's calls when they would call you while you were sleeping. And so I thought that was really, like, I was like, dang, I would never do that. But I'm like, that's so selfless, and I know I have to get to that point. And I know people talk about, oh, you have to care about yourself and have self-care and, you know, take care of your body and things. But then I hear about you doing things like that. And so I'm like, what's the balance between that? Caring about yourself, but then also laying down your life for another person?
Look, it's very important that we do, from a physical point of view, make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, because you're not going to be able to do anything for anybody if you're not physically, you know, in a good, healthy state. So that's important. Look, we did have some people who, when my phone was actually more accessible, you know, who would call from other time zones in other countries, and they would not do the math correctly. So they're thinking that it's ahead or behind in the wrong way, and therefore they end up calling me at 3, 4 in the morning, which actually, if it was closer to 3 in the morning, I would have still been awake most of the time, okay? Because I used to not go to bed till that late anyway. But, so they would call 5, 6 in the morning. Now, bear in mind, I did always correct them and say, just so you know, you got this is what time it is here. And they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, no, you have me on the phone. Let's deal with whatever you needed. You already got me on the phone. And I've had people try to bail out. No, I'm going to hang up. No, I'm already awake. What do you want? Just don't do this next time, okay? All right? And so, because I had a guy that, he didn't have that same problem. He lived here in the States, but he was an early morning person, and I wasn't at the time. So I would not wake up until about 11, because I go to bed at 4 now, or something in that range, right? 10, and then go to bed, like I get 6 hours sleep, go to bed at 4, get up at 10. He would want to call me at 8 when he got up, and he was ready to go, and he would just be frustrated, waiting, and finally call me at like 9. And then he'd say, did I wake you up? I said, yeah, you know you woke me up. I'm not awake this time. And then he'd go, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but you got me already. So let's deal with what you need to deal with. Just don't do that next time. But there does need, Taylor, to be a balance. But you have to know yourself. Let me make sure I'm explaining this well. Everybody is unique in terms of their capacity to do or not do certain things, handle certain things, okay? Well, how much they can do. Never judge another person by your capacity, okay? Never judge another person. I've had people in this ministry working for me over the years who insisted that I was gonna burn out because I was taking too much on my plate. And I can promise you, they have no idea my capacity. That's not bragging. I just have a unique capacity level for this particular job. Ask Billy, he'll tell you. And I bet you if you ask him, he'll tell you that he's never seen me over my limit, okay? And he's nodding his head, no. And that's, again, because he made this vessel to do this. So I'm not pushing to do these things. You would most likely push to handle the schedule that I do because you're not called to this. So he built me to do this. And so I can do, you know, and that's why I can be here at 9, do this service all the way till 5:30, and then counsel after we eat for another 3 or 4 hours without any issue. And it's no bragging. It's just, I was built to do this. It's like a bird bragging that it could fly or a fish that it could swim. I mean, this is what I was made to do. But at the same time, I do try to make sure I am getting enough sleep. I am eating reasonably correctly so that I'm getting the nutrition I need, okay? I do a few things here and there to give myself a break if I feel I need a mental break from the flow of things. But I have learned myself, right? You have to do that for you too. So Taylor, to answer your question, you have to know. See, some of you are all screwed up because you are almost always over your limits because you just don't pay attention to your limits. And so you use the very openly obvious phrase of, I feel overwhelmed, or I have too much on my plate. Anybody use those phrases? Well, I just got too much on my plate right now. Okay? You'll never hear me say that. Have I never said that? Okay? I never say I'm overwhelmed. I never say I have too much on my plate. Again, don't match with me. Don't think that that means you should be this way, because that's what Taylor was asking. Like, should we be able? No. You should be whatever he gave you to be able to do, limited to what you're expected to do. And you have the stamina and bandwidth you need to do what you need to do. I need to be available 24/7 almost. That's my job, by the way. It's not just, look, you needed to have the stamina to do your 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever you do for your job. My job is 24/7. So I can do 24/7 if I need to, short term. Somebody needs me all night long and this and that, I've done that. I've gone to a hospital at midnight to help somebody with a pregnancy issue and then got home at 5 in the morning. Okay, because their wife was having issues or whatever, they needed somebody to come. I've done that. But that's me. There's no expectation for you necessarily unless you have a role and a job and he expects that of you. Okay, but I don't push to do what I do. It's quite normal for me, okay? All right, so just to give you an example, I sat down with a couple of people one time at the feast, and the family wanted to meet with me, and I didn't have time until it was about 11:30 almost at night, almost midnight, by the time I got available to sit with them and talk. And so we sat down to talk, and they said, listen, we know it's late if, I said, don't worry, I'm good. And they were like, because we can stay up late, they said. I said, we'll see. About 1:30, there was some of this going on. Not by me. And I said, and the glassy-eyed look? And I said, okay, we're done. And the person, what? I said, I think we need to stop now because you're glazed over. Okay? And then they went, and you know what I did? I went back to my desk and I did another 2 hours of work because I still had stuff to do. Because I said to them, I do 3 in the morning. At that time, I did 3 in the morning every day. That was normal. It's not normal for you, then don't compete or compare. There's no competing with people. Okay? Now, since I got really sick, remember how I got really sick? Somehow my body clock and everything has shifted quite a bit. So now I go to bed closer to 1 or 2, and I get up at like 7 or 8, 6. I mean, I'm up every day early now. That never was the case. But I'm still getting the same amount of sleep. It's just I'm going to bed earlier. Okay, instead of 3 or 4, I'm going to bed 1 or 2. And so that's why this morning I got up, and when I get up, I'm just ready to go to work. So I got dressed and came here and started getting my notes together and other things that I needed to prepare for today. So I showed up here, early. By the time I normally would have been asleep, because I normally would have stayed up later. And so it is what it is. So did that answer your question? Okay, so please don't compare yourself to anybody. I don't expect Billy to do what I do. I tease him when he doesn't, because it's fun. Okay? But he knows I don't expect him. Like if he goes to leave and I'm not done yet, I'll say slacker. Or he'll ask for a day off. I go, what's a day off? But I know other people can't just do what I do, and I don't expect them to. And I don't feel that I'm better than them or anything. I just, I don't have another life. This is my life, okay? And I don't want to do anything else. And so I don't expect anybody to do that, beside me. So, don't compare yourself to people. All right, let's go to Isaiah. Not the book of Isaiah, Isaiah.
Thank you, Rabbi. I have a 2-part question about verse 14.
All right.
Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Is this connected to 1 Peter 3:9? I think. Yeah. Not returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you were called to this in order to inherit a blessing.
Yeah, this is Peter saying the same thing in his own words.
So there's a few verses on this throughout the writ, and there's a whole teaching that's developed on it in the Christian realm. And I want to know, is it okay to pull out scripture and speak blessing? Like, I
No,
bless you
look, the idea of
'cause
blessing
this is what
those,
Yahweh- yeah.
okay, the idea of blessing people is not you necessarily. I mean, if you have an opportunity to do something that is a blessing for someone who's persecuting you, then that would be fine. What I'm saying is you go before the Father and you ask Him to intervene on their behalf, because clearly, if they're making you miserable, do you know the fact is, please, let's all listen real quick, almost everybody that makes you miserable is making you miserable because they're miserable. Do we understand that? So pray for them. Abba, help them. They must be miserable because they're making everybody around them miserable. Okay? And so that's a way to bless them, asking Abba to do something, as opposed to reading a verse and this and that. But just go to Him and say, Father, this person is really making my life rough right now, must be going through something that needs to be cleaned up and handled and resolved, or else they're not going to get where they need to go, and they're just going to make everybody around them miserable. And so that's more what it's talking about, hopefully. Apparently that answered Isaiah's question because he sat down, so that's good. Okay, so Chris.
I really resonated with what you were talking about with everyone having their own capacity. I really struggle with, because I take different medications, and one just lasts a certain amount of time throughout the day. It'll be like, I won't know like what my capacity will be. It'll change like every, throughout the day. And so it's a struggle to kind of like guess what will be like, whether I'll be able to do as much as I want to do or whatever. And so I try to kind of plan more long, like over a longer period of time. So what I was doing was just giving myself like no room for leisure time, like entertainment time. I did that for some weeks. I was like every second of my day, I'm going to do something productive. But I think last week I decided, well, maybe that's not okay. Like I should do some leisure time. But then there's this one like YouTube series, like really long like video game that someone was streaming, and I just put hours and hours, and I was like, okay, well, so I can't swing the pendulum that way or the other way entirely. I have to make some decision. So my plan for next week is to give myself 1 hour a day of leisure time, because I think I probably need something like that every day, except for Shabbat.
Okay.
So I guess learn myself that.
All right, listen, everybody, you need balance. But what your balance is may not be Chris's, may not be mine, may not be the person sitting next to you. Everybody needs to find that balance. And you also have to look at your capacity. I like the way he said that sometimes he has more and sometimes he has less. I've got some real ADHD challenges at times. And when I'm really struggling with that, it gets frustrating, but every now and then I recognize there's no reason being frustrated. Just go with it for the moment. And then I realize I'm not going to get a whole lot done. So I find ways to just monitor and maintain my ADD until it calms down, and then I go back and be productive. But my first reaction is being frustrated. I really want to get something done, and I just can't, okay? Because it's just raging, squirrel, this, that. I just can't focus, okay? So then I just let the squirrels run for a few minutes, and then I can calm down and, do what I need to do. But you have to recognize yourself and what you need. Look, especially when I'm ADD happening, I use the tomato timer thing. I mean, which is basically a website where you can get 25 minutes of focused attention, then you give yourself on purpose 5-minute break, okay? And so for 5 minutes, I goof off and do something to handle my need to go and do something, and then I know I'm gonna focus for 25 minutes. Maybe for you it's 15 minutes and 5, maybe it's 20 or 30, whatever it is, figure out whatever works for you, but you need balance. All right? Your body, your mind need physical balance as well as mental and emotional balance. And so you do need leisure time. You don't need to binge watch YouTube or Netflix or something. You also don't need to binge play video games. The best thing for you to do is I wouldn't just say I'm going to give myself an hour or whatever, but recognize I'm going to give myself what I need up to an hour, and I'm going to just monitor my needs, but block out time when you can, so that you know that you are going to have this. Because it also helps your mind to know I'm going to have leisure after this. It's like looking forward to dessert at the end of the meal. Okay? And so you have the balance that you get to go through. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, and having like a flexible expectation so I don't feel like I'm disappointing myself in something.
Right, but don't be so disciplined as to say, I'm going to give myself an hour. Maybe you don't need an hour. Maybe you need an hour and a half. It's going to be different from time to time, okay? But monitor what you need as opposed to that you just get lost in it. So have some way to keep you grounded so you don't just get, all of a sudden, 2 hours is gone, you don't even know where it went. Anybody ever have that happen, right? So have something when you start doing the leisure, maybe have an alarm that goes off after 30 minutes or an hour to let you know you've done that much. Something to remind you.
These YouTube videos, they're like, it's about a game and there's werewolves and it's just so gripping, like you want to know what's happening next. But it's like the way they make it, all these games, they're gripping like over a course of like hours. Like you always are.
That's the kind of the point of the game.
I know.
Right?
So
is to get you sitting in front of it for your whole, every minute. They don't care that you have a life. Your whole life is playing their game. Okay? And they make the games to hit all your dopamine receptors and have you just always stimulated so that you're in that pleasure mode and that's all you want. We are complete and utter dopamine addicts. Okay? That's why people can't just watch something on their phone. They can only watch for about 3 seconds and they got to flip to the next one and the next one and the next one because it's getting a brand new hit. Okay? And your body is stimulated by new. New is always a big hit. So I want new, I want another one, I want another one. So I'm not just gonna sit and watch anything. I've got to constantly, now me, I've got a double problem because I've got a natural problem with dopamine. Okay? I mean, when I got my blood work done and everything, mine was like ridiculous. It was off the charts. You know, Billy was like, he just looked at me like, how do you function? You know, okay? Because like the range was like this and I was like way over here somewhere. And so it's very hard for me to focus because of that. And so you have to just work within your framework. Okay, quickly, because I need to get to the live stream.
I just had a comment and question. The comment real quick was just about when you talked about the word conformed having to do with schemas and diagrams. I was thinking of Exodus 25:9 with the tabernacle.
Yep.
And
okay, hold on. Exodus 25:9 is follow the pattern exactly. That's where they were building the tabernacle exactly according to the pattern. Okay?
Yeah, like your old ministries.
Yep.
Okay, and in verse 2, in verse 1, it talked about reasonable, and the other reference to that word, logikon, is in 1 Peter 2, talking about desiring the unadulterated milk of the word, and of the word is also logikon. So I was thinking about the logos as well as additional layer to that meaning.
Yep, very good. Very good. All right, we're going to try to quickly get Ashley and then Rocky, and then we'll go to the stream.
I'll go with my comment first because I want you to set me straight. When we were reading Romans 12, it made me think about the Torah portion that had the chapter 18, 19, and 20 in it.
Right.
And I don't remember exactly what chapter because I wrote it on the top of my page. If we're supposed to be all about the body and we're all the body, then someone like, I don't know, Janelle, I say her because we're friends. Someone like Janelle, who's a finger, and I'm an eye, she should not be poking me, and, then I shouldn't be using my mouth to badmouth someone else.
Well, that's I
know it sounds weird, but
I understand. Look, there are a lot of metaphors scripturally. People have talked about, the idea of being many parts of the body, that kind of thing. And just got to realize that whatever part you are, and we can use like an eye versus a finger versus an elbow versus a knee versus a foot, whatever, they're all important. They just do different things. And we should just not be jealous of the eye wanting to be the mouth or the ear wanting to be, the arm or whatever, okay? So this is important, but I like your thought that if you're the finger and someone's the eye, you don't want to be poking it. That's good. All right, thank you for that. Rocky. And I wasn't in here when you made your announcement, but welcome to Tennessee, brother.
Oh, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, everyone. Man, you make me cry. Man, my heart's beating so fast I can't even stand it. I can feel it. So, my question is, There was one man named Moses. Yahweh raised up one man named Moses to lead these people out. And then he raised up one man, Joshua, to guide them in. And then he raised, one man, Yeshua. He's only raised one man each time to set him apart. To me, you are that one man to this day. For me, that's why I'm here. I've spent thousands of dollars to find that out. And there's so Yahweh doesn't change. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. So what bothers me is this, but you're just a man. But he only uses men, and he only needs one man. And I'm just so glad that I'm here with that one set-apart man named Rabbi Steve Berkson. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate that very much, Rocky, and the check is in the mail. Look, one of the things that frustrates me the most, okay, is the need, which I can't do. I can't do this, but the need to help people to see that there's a difference between a teacher and an Ephesians 4 teacher. In other words, we've been trained for a good, mostly of the last 2,000 years, been trained that a teacher is a teacher, they're interchangeable, they're a dime a dozen. Anybody who teaches is a teacher. That's not what Paul's talking about. And not that I'm claiming to be whatever Rocky just said, but the point is, I think it's obvious to a lot of you that whatever I'm doing is different. But when I meet new people a lot of times, and we get people that come and maybe want to come to our congregation as far as like m.t.o.i affiliating with us in another part of the world or whatever, they often have a challenge looking at me like just a guy who's maybe can give them some advice, who's just a teacher, as opposed to a uniquely qualified and called to do certain things person. And that's hard. And I know I can't change that. That has to be between them and Abba. But that's hard for me because I look at them sometimes saying, I can't do what you want until you can see me correctly. I could try, but it won't matter. Okay, everybody that's ever been here and left couldn't see it. Or they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have left. Okay? It's funny because they thought they saw it, which is why they moved here. But then they couldn't see it. And again, I struggle knowing how to say these things as straightforward as I can without sounding like a raging egomaniac. I purely and completely have total humility as to the opportunity that has been given to me and the responsibility and expectation he has for me. I just get frustrated because your inability, whoever I'm talking to see me in that role correctly is the thing that's keeping you from getting where you need to go and receiving what you need to receive. I don't need it, you need it. You're seeing me the way Rocky does helps me nothing. It helps him, okay? And I don't know how to get that across to people and help people to see that, because naturally this comes across as, Rabbi's out of control with his ego and everything else. Look, talk to Billy, talk to Tom, they'll tell you what and look, you're talking about, in both their cases, you have a rabbi who's been a rabbi before he came here, and you have a gentleman who was a pastor before he came here, and they've seen a lot, and they know if something is uniquely different and that kind of thing. And again, it's not a claim. I would love to meet more that are doing more, that can do the things that are necessary to do. Because yes, while at the same time, Rocky, you're right that he did start with one always as that way, then Yeshua then put 12 out there, but the 12 still were under one. They were still under James, okay? But then at least there were 12, so that there was a lot more ability to get a lot more done. And so hopefully you're hearing that from me correctly. So I do appreciate what Rocky said. I just wanted to not make you, I didn't want anybody out there, not you guys know me well enough, I guess, to think that I just like people to come in and just stroke my ego. This doesn't stroke my ego. It makes me feel like here's somebody that will listen because he's looking at me correctly. Because if you don't, you won't listen, okay? Because then your expectation's not the same. And that's really the difference, okay? And so I'm either just another guy on YouTube making teachings, or I might be something different. You got to figure that out. I don't know how else to put it. All right, Rob on the live stream.
Okay. Yeah, we had many comments on there. It says, Rabbi, I love you, Rabbi. You are a gift. It says, another one says, I've been in churches for every kind for over 30 years, and I've never gotten more clarity about Yahweh than through Rabbi Steve, and on and on. So there's a lot of thank yous. So
You're very welcome to all of you who said those nice words. I appreciate them very much. It's always nice to know. And some of you send in cards and things and stuff. All of those things are very nice for me to know that somebody gets it, okay?
Okay, from Janet Hoffman, says, Romans 12:17, is this because we are supposed to present before others as representatives of the Most High?
Yes. In other words, if you're disrespecting what is right, according to the Most High, then you're bringing his name shame, you're dishonoring him in public. Because it says you're doing these things in the sight of other people. Okay, so you have to always be aware that if you're going to be a child of the living Elohim, you now have, every one of you has this role to some degree as an ambassador or a representative of the Most High. So that claim has everybody watching you to see what that looks like. And so if you're disrespecting what is right in front of other people, then you're not bringing him honor, you're bringing him shame. And if you did the mikveh declarations, the last one says that you are making a commitment to walk out the rest of your life when you came out of that water in such a way as to not bring the names, dishonor and shame, but to bring them glory and honor, okay? And that's the commitment you make publicly, okay? And so, actually, I think the wording is glory and honor and not shame, right? You walk out the rest of your life in such a manner as to bring the names of Yahweh and Yeshua, glory and honor, not shame. All right, next.
Okay, from Warrior Lion, says, how do I exercise a gift I fear using? I used to be a Baptist pastor. I am ashamed of the error I taught. I am hesitant to teach anything ever again, but speaking and teaching seems to be my quote-unquote gifts.
Okay, so what's the missing element here? The missing element is that you are hesitant because you're afraid to say something that's in error. So what do you need to do? You need discipleship, okay? Anybody that wants to teach, you first have to learn before you teach. And you can't just teach what you just learned 3 seconds ago, okay? You need time. It takes time to be discipled, to learn. Actually, I shouldn't say it that way. It takes time to unlearn. So what will happen is you'll learn something, and it'll still be tainted by what you didn't unlearn that's still connected to the thing you're teaching, so you get a mixed mess. All right? So that's why people learn about Shabbat, but they teach it wrong, because it's still mixed with other things. Now, they knew enough that Sunday wasn't Shabbat, so they move over to Saturday, but then they treat it like Sunday. There are people that go out to restaurants and they do other things, and all they do is just go to service and they live the rest of the day like they did on Sunday. There are people that keep the whole day 24 hours, but they still do other things that they shouldn't be doing. I've been to Messianic Jewish congregations, MJAA congregations, who were selling tickets to things on Shabbat, and they were doing other things on Shabbat. I was like, really? Okay? Because they were not properly trained. Yeshua didn't send those guys out till he trained them. Then at the end of Matthew, he didn't say to everybody on the planet that might read Matthew 28, he said, you guys, I trained you, now go do what I trained you to do. Go make disciples of the nations. I trained you guys, not everybody. You, I trained you to do this, now go do it. All right? The Great Commission was a Great Commission for those 12 guys. Okay? It was not everybody's commission. Of course, because people in the church are the Great Commission, we have to go out to the world, and no. Those guys, those who have the anointing and the gifting to be apostles and the fivefold guys. Okay, it's not everybody. And they have to be, you're not fivefold if you're untrained. Now, you may have, this person, Warrior Lion, you may have a gift to speak and teach, but that gift has to then be trained. It has to be trained, or you're not going to be free from teaching error, and you're already ashamed of the error that you taught before. You don't want to do that again, all right? So to that person, call me and we'll see where you're at, and I can help you figure out if you have anything and what we can do with that. Set an appointment with Elder Billy and get on my calendar and we'll see. All right, but you need to be trained. By the way, you guys all keep praying that as soon as we get the initial buildings built on the feast site and the new congregation building, the next building to go up is the yeshiva, okay? And if we had enough funds, we'd build all three at the same time. We just don't. Okay, I'm pretty sure we could build the two that I need to build first, but I'd love to get that yeshiva built so that we can actually have a yeshiva. And by the way, I spoke to Rico today, and he happened to give me a call. We're friends, and he said, I asked him if he'd be interested in maybe teaching his temple class as part of my yeshiva when I open it, and he said that might be a great idea, so, okay? So, I think that would be great to have him as the curriculum and teacher, him and Joe Good and who was his teacher, helping us to put together the temple-related course of study in the yeshiva. And then also maybe a course on ancient Near East and ancient Near East law and all these type of things. So he sounded very interested in that. And so, but the yeshiva is still a couple of years away. Unless all of a sudden a whole boatload of money showed up, but that's a couple of years away. And so just keep that in prayer. Again, I'm not soliciting for anything, okay? I'm just letting you know that it's in the plans, all right? This is not some sideways way to get in your pocket. You guys are all very generous, and we're doing very well, and we're able to do the things in the order he wants us to do them. Okay, I just wanted to let you know what our plans are. Okay, next.
Okay, from Janet Hoffman. Says also in Romans 12:18, would you give us some examples about situations when keeping peace it is not possible?
All right. So this may sound a little bit subtle in terms of it being similar, but not. There's one thing to maintain, like if it's possible, be at peace. It's another thing to simply avoid conflict. All right? Because you don't have to necessarily have peace, but you can still avoid conflict. So make the effort at least to avoid conflict. If you know there's something that's going to lead to conflict, you should be making an effort to avoid conflict. Now, some conflicts are unavoidable, and some things are unavoidable because they're people you have to interact with. So do it with as much shalom as you can have. Think about which aspects of the fruit of the Spirit you need to have active to, get through whatever it is that's happening right there. Maybe counting a joy in a trial, maybe having, peace when it's all going crazy, maybe having, patience and when it's just impossible to have patience. These are ruach level aspects of the fruit, okay? Because you can have all the things in the 9 aspects of the fruit when life is wonderful without the ruach at all. It's easy to, do love when everything's wonderful and joy when it's wonderful. But what about loving an enemy, okay? Or having peace with someone who's just constantly disturbing your peace. Okay, pray about it and try to seek congruence and allowing the Ruach to bring out that level of peace or that level of patience, that level of joy that you can't have on your own power. Because it's not natural to you to do those things, okay? All right, but and by the way, we're not talking about a supernatural infusing of this. It's where you ask Abba to show you how you can let his mind be in you so that you can have that peace or that joy or those things that you don't have. Stop thinking like a Christian where somehow it's all done for you and it's infused to you or some other thing. That's not what I'm saying here. Saying is, I in my own flesh have no idea how to have peace right now. I need you to inspire your mind into my mind so I can look at this correctly so I can have peace. As opposed to you just all of a sudden, I just feel wonderful. That doesn't happen like that, okay? And if it ever did happen like that, it probably didn't come from the above. Because the below can make you have all that, and then you think, see, because they give you everything. All right, Hasatan will just give you stuff. Abba wants you to develop stuff. Okay? So stop looking for it, because if you're looking for it that way, if you're looking for it in that manner, then you're looking for it from the wrong source. Because some of you who've interacted with that other source, no, the other source is happy to just hand you whatever you want. You want it? Here. And it keeps you tied into the wrong source. Abba doesn't do that. Abba shows you how you can have it, shows you what leads to it, shows you how to develop it, shows you how to accomplish it. It doesn't just give it to you. Amen? All right, what else?
Okay, from Yanni, says, quote unquote, don't be the diagram and schematic of the world. Rabbi, can you explain so I understand? Thank you.
Okay, so for example, I mentioned the property and we're building something. For building something, we have what's called a blueprint, which lays out how we can make that what's on that paper become a building exactly like the paper said. So that's a schematic, that's a diagram. It's a blueprint that if you follow that blueprint, you get a certain result. It's like a recipe. Maybe you'd understand this one, right? It's like a recipe. If I do the steps of the recipe exactly like it says, I should get the food to come out exactly like they said it would. I'll get the cake, I'll get the dish, I'll get the food, whatever it is I'm making. It could be a main course dish, it could be a dessert, whatever it is. If I follow the direction step by step, I should get the result. When you imitate the schematic or the design or the recipe of the world, you're going to get out the result that the world is. You're going to become the world. Okay? The reason I said schematic is because in the Greek, the root of the word there is schema. Okay? The word that's in there. It's a little bit, there's a prefix to it and a suffix to it, but the center part, the root of it is schema. And so it has the idea of schematic. That's where we get the word schematic from. Okay, so that's why I use that. But maybe it'd be easier to think of it as a recipe or a blueprint, okay? And then you follow those steps, or like directions. You get directions to build something and that you bought and it has directions to put it together. You follow the directions correctly, it comes out like you're supposed to, most of the time. Some directions are just bad, okay? But it comes out as good as the directions are designed to get it to come out, right? All right. Go ahead, one more, I think at least, because it's 5:22. I want to get done on time today at 5:30.
Okay. There's several people asking. Shelley Bell says, Rabbi, how do we know what our gift or gifts are when we have nobody around us that are on our walk or we are alone where we are? Daphne Neighbor says, how do we recognize where our true giftings is and not just what we want it to be? Any tips for asking and make sure we're being faithful in them? And Ms. K is there a way to determine my gifts, especially I am not physically in the congregation, and I'm not talking about personality tests because that didn't help me on this.
Okay. Giftings. All right, so this is a question that comes up a lot, especially because the church taught it so differently, so incorrectly. Think about what you do. I'm going to use the word effortless. That doesn't mean it's not like you're not doing something, but to you it's not hard. It's not a lot of effort, even though it might be a lot of work. What I do is a lot of work, but it's effortless, if you understand what I'm saying. I don't struggle to do it, all right? And so that's where your gifting is, and things that you do that benefit someone else. I should have said that first. Things you do that benefit others, that is effortless to you, that's very much you, just being you, okay? And that may be empathy and sympathy when you sit and talk with somebody. It may be making something. It may be visiting people. It may be recognizing that someone's not here and you call them up. You know, there's all kinds of things. It could be you're great with mechanical things, and so someone needs, you can fix their car, you can fix their plumbing, you can fix something, and it happens to be that natural thing that you do without a whole lot of work. In other words, not work, but struggle. It may be a lot of work, but for you, it's not a struggle, it's just flows naturally for you. I've always taught. Anybody that would ever interact with me on any level, I was teaching them something, okay? Matter of fact, Abba in his mercy on all the rest of you, not you here in this room because you're here because you want to hear what I have to say, but on the rest of the world was a bunch of people who didn't want to hear what I had to say. He gave me a bunch of people who wanted to hear what I had to say, okay? Because I was saying it anyway to anybody that would sit still. Because I couldn't help but teach. That's what I do, all right? If you've ever come out to eat with me, which a lot of people do after Oneg and after whatever, we go out later, tonight, I'll be very quiet at the table until somebody needs something taught. And then something will come up where I can teach and share, and I just naturally flow right into that and start doing it. But otherwise, I don't really say a whole lot because I don't have a whole lot of gift of social interaction. So if I'm not needed to explain, teach, instruct, guide, encourage, or whatever, from a teaching point of view, a leadership or lead in some way, I don't know what to do, okay? But when I do that other stuff, it's natural, it's effortless. By effortless, again, it doesn't mean it's not work, okay? It means you don't struggle. So think about the things in your life that you do that others benefit from, that are natural to you. They don't take any struggle at all. It's very, it comes easily to you, even though there may be a lot of work to it. But it comes easily to you, okay? And that's where your gifting is. Hopefully that made some sense. Anybody else, real quick?
Jessica Rivera says, in verse 9, you mentioned love without hypocrisy. How do we work towards feeling positive about doing things we absolutely don't want to do, and that we have to, parentheses, that we have to do so as to prevent hypocrisy?
Okay, and sometimes, I'm glad we have it on the screen now so I can see it and read the question. And by the way, if you ever want to come into this role, a big part of this role is figuring out what the person's asking, not what they asked, okay? And that's sometimes when you see me thinking, it's because I'm trying to make sure I'm feeling comfortable that I can figure out what it is that they're really asking. Since it's in the context of love, and you're talking about not, working towards doing things that you don't want to do, etc., let's understand that love is not a feeling, okay? Love is not a feeling. So wanting to and not wanting to has nothing to do with it being love. Wanting to and not wanting to has to do with like. All right? I can love you, but if I don't like you right now, I don't want to do the things I'm supposed to do because I love you, because I'm letting my emotion of called like and not like get in the way. Okay? My children, my wife, I will always love them. I might not always want to do everything that I should do because I may not like them very much for a moment. Right? And they may not like me very much and not want to do. I'm saying is because like is an emotion. It's a preference. I like, I don't like. We talk about how that gets you in trouble all the time. Love is not an emotion. Love is a choice. You recognize a relationship and you then love in that relationship. Okay? Sometimes it's a choice. You pick somebody to love, your spouse. Sometimes it's not a choice. You give birth to a baby and that's now yours. You love that baby. Now, but you may not always like everything that they do and everything about them, which is why you may say something that sounds weird like, I love you, but I don't like you very much right now. And it'd be nice to have both of those be congruent. So I think what's happening in this question is, what do you do so it's not hypocrisy because you know you love the person, but you don't like them right now, so you don't want to do what you need to do? Well, then you got to address the emotion. Why are you allowing liking and not liking affect what needs to be done out of love? And that's the struggle. That's the human struggle. How do you do that? Well, it takes an elevated person to do that, right? I'm not claiming I'm there, but it takes an elevated mindset, an above mindset. Abba loves you, even though often in Scripture he tells you how much he doesn't like what they're doing. Okay? But he always does what he needs to do and what he's said to do and what he's obligated himself to do, regardless of liking them or not, or liking us or not. So maybe that answered the question, Jessica. I hope it did. When I see you next, you could always tell me and we could talk about it some more. But just remember that there's a difference between the emotion called like, which is you. That's the me, I like, I don't like, and love. I love you shouldn't have any other, there's a word I'm looking for. It should be situation irrelevant. In other words, it should have nothing that it's connected to that affects whether or not you love. Once you love, you love. Unconditional, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. It should be not a conditional thing. Like is a conditional thing. You're doing what pleases me, I like you right now. You don't do what pleases me, I don't like you very much right now. I love you anyway. Why? Because there's a reason I love you. We have a relationship. I've taken ownership of this covenanting or relationship that I have with you. If I brought you into the world because you're my kid, I need to always love you because you're mine. If I marry you, same thing. I need to always love you because you're mine. However, liking is a whole different challenge. And we have to be careful that we don't make love conditional. Okay? Abba was very strong in cursing Israel many times. He never diminished his love for them. Never. But because of their breaching of covenant over and over again, which he did not like very much, he had to do what he needed to out of love to get them back to where they needed to be, which wasn't very fun for them. Okay? It certainly was not fun for them. So hopefully that makes some sense about love, and let's not confuse it with that emotion called our preference, I like. Because if you're married and you're not liking your husband or your wife very much right now, you're not going to want to do the things you need to do that love requires. So when it says don't let love be with hypocrisy, well, when you're letting your like or not like, that like or dislike get in the way of love, now you're being a hypocrite. Okay? That's hard. That's a challenge. Okay, hopefully you guys can be up to that challenge. All right, it looks like we have all the children, yes? Everybody came running in, I saw them. Okay, good.